beating the book. How did you do last week?
2-1. So 4-2 so far in these videos. I think 17-14 overall.
Where do you want to end up at the end of the season?
I mean, where do I want to end up? I mean, as high as possible. I mean, realistically, if you pick every game like I did, I think I won 144 one year, like 144.99 or something like that.
Wow.
And that is, and there was a bunch of ties, and there was like in 2000 or something. That's like you win a lot of money if you do that. That's what I would hope to get. It's like 58-59% ish. That's very good. Picking all the games, that's very hard to do. But picking 3 games a week, you really could get to 58% or so, 60%. So 2-1 each week to me is fantastic.
Steelers -4.5 at Oakland. You like?
Who do you think I like?
Oakland.
Yes, I like Oakland.
Nice.
And you're going to learn something about me is that I like the ugliest team possible. I mean, you don't want the team that everyone else likes. And you look at this line, you're like, why is it only 4.5? The Raiders are terrible. They're one of the worst teams in the league. And the Steelers are good. I mean, they lost in Denver, but that was a tough place to play opening day. And then they beat the Jets, who looked pretty good in week 1. And we know the Steelers are well coached and they're, probably a Hall of Fame quarterback. So, why would I possibly only take 4.5 points between the Raiders and Steelers?
Why?
Well, because Oakland's at home. And so home field's worth 3 points. So if this were in Pittsburgh, you double the 3. Instead of it being toward Oakland, it's taken away from Oakland and put toward Pittsburgh, it would really be 10.5, okay?
Oh, okay.
And even that isn't that big of a line between these two. But I just think that
it does seem pretty low.
Right? And
yeah.
That's what everybody thinks. And so the public is all over the Steelers. 93% of the bets are on the Steelers. So why doesn't the line move? Usually, when there's a lot of bets on one side, it pushes the line. The book's like, we can't take this lopsided action. We got to make this 6 points, 7 points, 7.5 until people start betting on the Raiders. Well, because it's not moving because the pros must be betting on the Raiders. And they know that they move this thing up higher, the pros are going to come in on the Raiders and clean up. So to me, sometimes you're not really handicapping the game, you're handicapping the bettors. Do you want to be on the side of the schmoes, the square guys who are just like, this team's better, I'll bet on them? Or do you want to be on the side of the guys who use data and research? I'm not saying the pros are always right. If they're right 58 to 60% of the time, that's great. That's a huge chance to be wrong. But over time, you're going to win that way. So my pick is the Raiders at home, getting 4.
And there's a lot of research that goes into those guys. I heard that guy on your radio program.
RJ Bell.
He was fantastic.
Yes, very, very good.
I was blown away by stuff he was saying.
Yep.
All right, so St. Louis at Chicago. St. Louis getting 8.
Getting 8 at Chicago.
Yeah.
And I'm taking the favorite.
Chicago.
I'm an underdog picker usually, but I like buying Chicago low. Their stock has been depleted. They look terrible in Green Bay. They couldn't block. Jay Cutler held the ball forever when he wasn't throwing an interception. Mike Tice, what was he doing? Every route was so deep. And then Brandon Marshall, when he finally has an open touchdown, just drops it. But if you look at it, their defense played really well. I mean, Green Bay scored on a fake field goal.
What was the final score of that game?
It was like 23-10.
Okay.
But Green Bay got one of their touchdowns on a fake field goal. Obviously, Marshall should have caught that touchdown. That only resulted in a field goal. And despite Cutler turning it over 4 times in Green Bay, it wasn't like a total wipeout.
Blowout, yeah.
And I think Chicago's defense is good, and they just got to call some plays where they get the ball out of Cutler's hands more quickly. I like Chicago. I know the Rams look pretty good, and that's why I think it's kind of a contrarian play. Normally I take the Rams, taking Chicago.
All right, and then finally, Philly at Arizona. Arizona's getting 4. Philly's giving 4. However you want to say it, it's the same thing, right?
In Arizona.
In Arizona. All right. That's also low, yeah?
Low, well, I mean, Arizona just won in New England.
Nah, but people are going to say that's a fluke.
But they beat Seattle week 1. And Seattle
We're
just
going to say
blew
that's
up,
week 1.
But they just blew out. I mean, at what point, that's the point, right? At what point do we
that's
say it's a fluke, it's a fluke, it's a fluke, and suddenly you're 6 games in the season, the team's 5-1 or 4-2.
It's not a fluke anymore.
How can it, at some point, you have to take the results seriously from this year. And Arizona, I think they're like 9-2 in their last 11 games or something. They were really good down the stretch. They were terrible in the preseason. People still care about that. I mean, really, in week 3, we're going to talk about that. And the quarterback is a disaster, maybe, and they didn't get the ball to Larry Fitzgerald. They can't run the ball. And Philly.
And yet still.
Why is Philly a 4-point favorite? You know why? Because Philly won 2 games despite turning the ball over like 8 times. And the Browns, I mean, they won by 1 against the Browns. That's not very impressive. But beating the Ravens despite turning it over 4 times, that's kind of impressive. But I'm not going to give Philly credit for all the numerical superiority that they have. Their yards per play, yards per attempt. Their defense is really good. They look great to the sort of the number crunchers. I need to see them win a game convincingly and decisively. I don't care that turnovers are considered luck. I'm taking Arizona.
I like it. Beating the book with Chris Liss, RotoWire TV.